A lot of you have figured out by this point that I have what I think is a really cool job that I do each spring, going to the different camps and getting to teach about horses in an all-encompassing aspect. The theme we had this year for our worships was riding the river. Now, our classes start at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, and it's usually 4 to 5 o'clock on Friday when we finish, starting right after breakfast and finishing 9, 10 o'clock at night. Very full days, a lot of information. And I would estimate of that time, probably 8 hours of that is worship, spread out along the different days. Some weeks it's a little more, some weeks it's a little less, because it's coupled with working with the horses and doing different things with the horses, but it's a worship focus that we have with that. So I ask you, what does the term riding the river mean to you? Our younger generation may not pick up on that one, but looking at that old school term, to ride the river. Anybody heard that one before? If you were in workshop, you can't answer. I know there's 3 people here that were. They already know the answer.
I picture the Garden of Eden, the river in the middle.
Okay, going right to the Garden of Eden. I like it. Great answer. But to ride the river, in this context, it's kind of an Old West type thinking of someone you would want to ride the river with. Does that narrow it down a little more? Someone you would want to ride the river with is someone who is trustworthy, an honest person, someone you can face challenges with, has the skills to navigate hazards, a good partner for life's journeys. Starting to sound familiar? A reliable guide for dangerous river crossings, someone who values teamwork. There's a lot of different directions you can go with that. So we asked people, we started with that Sunday night, and we asked people, what kind of a friend do you want to be? Do you want to be someone you can ride the river, who people will want to ride the river with? Do you have friends like that? And so as the week progressed, we dove into this topic of friends. When you first meet somebody, you're an acquaintance. You don't really know them yet. You start feeling the waters out. What kind of person are they? Do our personalities align? Do our needs align? What kind of judgment does this person have? We're testing those waters, trying to figure out who they are. And once we understand that person, then they go from an acquaintance to a friend, right? Now I get to call you friend. I know you a little more. But now we start digging into things a little bit more. As we become friends, we start learning more of what their experiences are. And in these early stages, we as humans have an internal motivation because we're wanting to do this for ourselves. What can this person offer me? What experiences do they have that offer me? As this friend grows, we move into this good friend stage where we start feeling more valued in the friendship. There's more trust, a strengthening bond. And we start to become good friends as this develops. We can start seeing some of this play out in other things. John 17, verse 3, now this is eternal life, that you know the one true God, Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. There's that knowing, one true God. We're having to build that relationship. But it can't end at good friends, can it? Can it? Do we just stay at good friends, or do you think there's another level? What about great friends? After good friends, we have great friends, where we start unpacking this a little more. The level of connection between the people becomes stronger. We trust them more. We know what their beliefs are. We know there's some level of love between the people, remembering there's many different levels of love, different types of love. So we move into that great friends level, and we start to see more of this if we look in the Bible. 1 John 5, 3 through 4. In fact, this is love for God, to keep his commands. His commands are not burdensome. Yeah. For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. So as we start developing a great friendship, does it become a burden at that point? Or is it something we want to do? Because as we progress through the levels of friendship, they start out at the very beginning, and I missed this one. At the very beginning, I mentioned through it was internal motivated, but at the very beginning, at the acquaintance stage, our motivations are external because we're wanting people around us. We're wanting that circle of protection, those external influences. They move internal as we progress through the stages. But as we keep going, there's a best friend, right? There's a commitment between people. When you reach that best friend level, there's a level of trust. Is there not? Does any of you have a best friend that you don't trust? We have to have a level of trust, that foundation of trust, might you say, when we reach that best friend level. Psalms 13, 5 through 6, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praises, for he has been good to me. When we reach that best friend level, things can happen, right? There can be stressors on the relationship. There can be things that don't go well. But because we've developed over the years this foundation of trust, we get this unfailing love that says, I still love you, even though whatever has happened. We've heard this morning a death in the family, sickness plaguing us, the smoke that we've all been plagued with this week. Heard over in Europe, what was that number, Caleb?
28,000.
28,000 deaths from heat. That best friend level, no matter what happens and what's going on in your life. Workshop tour this year was a challenge, to say the least. Esther Lawrenson, who I believe most all of you have met at this point, she's been here a couple of times. She puts a lot of miles on her vehicle. I would have to ask her what her average is. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I know at least one of her vehicles, I'm pretty sure she's put over 1 million miles on the chassis. Engine and transmission were different, but one of the vehicles, the chassis went that long. Going from camp to camp, workshop tour this year started in South Carolina, then was up into Indiana, and then we were split between Akita in Illinois and Lone Star in Texas, and then Esther was out to New York, then to Sunset Lake in Washington, then up to Foothills in Alberta, Canada. A vehicle is very important for Esther to travel around with. As we were getting ready to head out, since I was going to be going with Esther for the first 3 weeks, with the way fuel prices are, it made no sense for us both to be driving 2 vehicles to all these different places. So I was going to be riding with her. And the plan was that she was going to come down on Friday, get the first leg of the trip down. It's about 6.5 hours from her house to our house. She was going to get that done, drive done on Friday, and then she was going to sleep because she had a very busy week leading up to workshop. And then right after we got done at church and I got home, I'd eat a quick bite and we would hit the road. Well, during that church service before we were supposed to start our first workshop, my phone kept dinging with updates from Esther. Her car started acting up. A mechanic, there were parts that had been delayed. Things had not gone well. They were trying to fix her vehicle. It had developed problems over the winter, parts delayed. A mechanic, out of the kindness of his heart, who knows Esther, knows the program, worked through the night, Friday night, trying to get her car going. She didn't make it down here Friday night. She was driving all Sabbath morning. Car started acting up, making funny sounds. She texted me, and I saw what the text said, and this was right as church was finishing, and I bumped Caleb's shoulder, and I called Esther and told her, keep coming. We will make it. I happen to know a family that has many vehicles, and so a vehicle was offered up. Esther made it to Caleb's, switched vehicles, picked me up, and that was pushing bedtime for the kids, wasn't it? So, you're 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening when she finally made it to my house, and we had to be to the camp in South Carolina by 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and we still had, I think, 13 hours of driving to do. We made it to a hotel very late Saturday night, halfway through. Sunday morning, we got up and ate breakfast, fueled the vehicle. Car didn't start. I looked at Esther and I said, even if we have to take a horse and buggy, we will make it. I don't know if the vehicle has acted up since then, but for the rest of the trip, every time if we fueled up, the car didn't want to start. You had to crank it extra long, and then it would eventually start. Is it still doing that? Okay. We'll have to fix that at some point.
Pretty sure I found it.
Perfect.
Just haven't fixed it. The part's sitting on the dash in front.
Okay. We got to the camp, and we were hoping that was the end of it, of this troubles. Friday morning, we're sitting at breakfast, gone through a week. Week didn't go as planned. We were supposed to have 7 people, only had 4. I get a call from Caleb. End up on FaceTime with Caleb. Esther and I are looking at one of his horses who refuses to die. But at the time, we weren't sure if the horse was going to make the day. The horse is still with us to this day. Finished up with Caleb, offered some treatment options, and said, keep us updated. I hadn't been off the phone 5 minutes. Got hit again. My wife calls. Went out and sat with her last night so this wouldn't happen. I answer the phone and say, please tell me it's not a horse problem. And her response, Nevada's dead. Talked to her for a few minutes, called Caleb back up and said, hey, I know your day's not going good, but I need you to do me a favor. A little bit later, Esther gets informed that her sister-in-law's brother passed away. Well, is that enough yet? That was week 1. Week 2 at Timber Ridge, I don't get calls from the butchers when I'm on workshop tour unless they need something, because they know I'm busy. It's Chris calling to inform me that the manager of the steel shop unexpectedly died. Really? Another one? It was that week that Audrey ended up going into the hospital and not coming back out. The end of that week, plans for the next workshop completely go up in smoke. Because we were going to be doing a double workshop. Esther and I were going to be at Camp Akita, and we were going to have a very small group of people watching on Zoom from Lone Star Camp in Texas. That very small group of people, that was supposed to be 5 people who Esther had seen ridden before, most of them had been through a workshop before, turned into 15, 16?
We had 18 people altogether.
18, plus some of the others, yes. 18 altogether. 5 to 18. Esther and I started a small panic attack. I started making phone calls. Esther started making phone calls. I remember the look on both Grace and Heather's face when they were asked, what are you doing next week? They were there attending the workshop at Timber Ridge and went from attending to assisting Esther at Akita, and Caleb jumped on the road Sabbath morning to come get me so he and I could go run a workshop at Akita, or at Lone Star. We got a plan. It'll be fine. Should have known better than to say that. The poor camp down there in Texas, wonderful people that run it, well-meaning people. I'm glad to call them friends. They were a little distracted because, see, the start of workshop, they had 2 weeks until their summer camp started. And if you remember 2025, there was a terrible tragedy that happened in Texas from some flooding that hit Camp Mystic, and a bunch of girls perished, and to this day, one of the bodies has yet to be recovered. Well, Texas went overboard in their regulations. My time is disappearing, but the regulations were absolutely ridiculous that these camps were bending over backwards trying to meet. And as of the start of the workshop, they did not know if they were going to be able to run camp because they had not received their license for the year. And there were some camps that were saying, we'll take the fine, it'll be okay. Well, the state of Texas clarified it and said it's not a fine, it's a cease and desist letter and a court date. They were serious about it. They had already submitted multiple applications for this license. I think one of the most ridiculous things that was said in the county, from what they told us, where the gymnasium on the camp rests is the highest point in the county. And so they said, well, if there's flooding, we'll just all go hang out in the gym. Because if the water hits the gymnasium, there's a whole lot of other problems that have happened. The state came back and said, well, that's all fine and good, but if you're going to do that, you got to build a helipad on top of it. Absolutely ridiculous. Matter of fact, the state didn't even tell them until a month before what the list of disasters were they had to plan for. So they were a little busy with dealing with that, and there were things that got missed, and it was a very rough start to the workshop. Made it home, ended well. I was done for the year. Esther was to Camp Cherokee. Is it going to be better? Nope. They had to put a horse down in the middle of the workshop. And Audrey died that week. I knew this one was going to get me. That same week, I found out I wasn't ready for something. I got a text from my dad. Even though you all know the answer to this one because you saw my mom last week, my dad found my mom unconscious on the floor. Puts life into perspective. Every week, something kept happening. Sunset Lake, it's the week of Audrey's funeral, and that same day, friend of the church, Sandy Ryder, passed away. During the workshop on Wednesday, one of the participants in the workshop had a close friend die. The list keeps going. I was up at Camp Asable helping with hay earlier this week and found out they've lost 2 horses this summer. One of the people that assisted us at one of the workshop, right before workshop tour started, she lost her job. And then just a couple weeks ago, we learned that Greg, the manager of the steel shop that died, his brother unexpectedly died. We've heard more things today during prayer and praise. I'm sure we could keep going. We could back up even further. The church lost somebody else this spring. Second Corinthians 1, 8 through 9. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, but the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired for life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. when we spend time with Jesus, when we build a friendship with him, when it progresses through, first we meet Jesus, other people tell him about, or other people tell us about him. We start learning more about him. We become friends. We become good friends with Jesus, then great friends. We move to best friends. It's an internal motivation to that point for ourselves. But then we hit the forever friends stage. And it becomes an external motivation because we want to share that with others. I can tell you for a fact that workshops would not happen without our dear friend and forever friend, Jesus. Every year, it gets harder and harder. Every year, the challenges get more and more. You listen in this church to prayer and praise, and the prayer request list seems to get longer. We hear more things of what's going on. I don't always get to hear some of the feedback because not everybody passes it back on to Esther and I as far as what people thought of the workshops. We got some feedback this year, and I'm going to share part of it with you this morning. My favorite part about the training is teaching us how we can use horses to point people to Jesus. We began each day with an amazing worship time using horses to teach beautiful Bible truths. This is and should be the foundation of every camp program. Skipping ahead a little bit here. I can tell the difference it made in the lives of my wranglers, and I know the difference it has made in mine. And I pray it flows into the lives of every camper that comes to our horse barn. Psalms 46:10. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." Where are you today? As life continues to hammer and beat you down, are you still praising the Lord for what you have? Are you still taking that time to be still and know? Where do you want to be? There will be times along life's journey that it's going to be hard. There's going to be times where it looks like there is no way out. But He will carry you through. One more story. I know I've exceeded my time, dear. Years back when I was a Pathfinder, early on in my days there was a Pathfinder trip that I was on. I can't remember which one it was or where we went. But one of the things we did that week was we went whitewater rafting. It was great fun. Being one of the younger Pathfinders in the group, the raft that I was put in was one that that had the river guide for the group with us. The rest of the rafts that went, kayaks that went, there was nobody else from the outfitter It was just Pathfinders and those, but our raft, we had the river guide with us. It was a blast. He didn't dump us. He knew the river. He knew the turns. He knew the rapids. He knew where the raft needed to be. If memory serves me correct, I believe everybody else in the group got dumped at least once on the trip. Our raft never dumped. Because we had a river guide who knew what was coming. I look forward to the day when we get to see our river guide face to face. He knows the rapids in life's river. He knows what's coming, and I know it is hard. Believe me, I'm there right now. But if we trust him, he is faithful to carry us through. And I look forward to the day when I can ride that river of life with him.